Just to give you a bit of an idea about what we're doing within Historic Environment Scotland, within the digital documentation and digital innovation teams to deliver digitally, what focused applications we're using. This is very much a team effort. It's not just about what Al and I are doing here. So you've met already some of our team, but just to give you a quick intro to them, we have Adam Frost, who was chairing the session earlier, James Heaper, who was also chairing the session earlier, Alan Simpson, who's sitting further back there, and we have our two interns, Marta Pilarska, who's been with us for about 18 months, and Sophia Naresh-Rafi. We also have our most recent team member, Dolores. So Matt Ritchie referenced earlier our place in time, the Scottish Government's strategic strategy for the historic environment, and we very much deliver along those lines as well, under the headings of lead, understand, protect and value. And what I'm going to do in this talk is just run quickly through 3 of those areas on understand, protect and value, and give you some examples of how we're delivering in those areas. So first off with understand, we really use our colleagues in academia here to help us deliver on our understand strategic objective. So we partner with academic organisations, and we support PhD students and other researchers to really help us with our applied research. So one example of this is Nick Hannon, who unfortunately isn't with us today. He's just submitting his PhD research just now at Canterbury Christchurch University, and he's been using aerial LiDAR data from the Antonine Wall to use it more as a measurement tool rather than a visualization tool, to give us new information about the wall and to use that information in how we manage that site, which is geographically very challenging and also from a management perspective split across lots of different local authorities, so quite a challenge to manage. And his analysis and research has given us new information on how we can present and understand that site. Lee, you've heard about earlier, her research into Brochs in Shetland, so I won't dwell on Lee's research, she's already explained it very well. Rosie is with us today. She's about to start some PhD research looking at crowdsourcing for conservation, based down at UCL in London. So Rosie, are you about? There she is, so speak to Rosie later on and find out more about what she's going to be doing. But using innovative mobile phone technology, using that in terms of how we can gather information to help us with sites that are quite remote in our estate and sites that we don't often visit perhaps ourselves. So can the public engage with us to give us information that we can use to help in the conservation of these sites? And we also engage at postdoctoral level. Enrique Valero, where is he? He's somewhere here today. There he is, so speak to Kike later on today. This is some research that we're undertaking with him and colleagues at Heriot-Watt University, looking at automated survey for historic buildings and how we can use 3D information from both laser scanning and photogrammetry to combine in algorithms that Kike has been developing. So from a machine learning perspective, can we automatically segment the information that we're getting from laser scans to tell us that in this facade, for example, there are 3,100 stones in there? And taking it beyond that we can automatically calculate the amount of mortar that would be needed for repointing that facade. In this case, 1.44 kilometres of mortar. So methods that would traditionally have been done with a more traditional type of survey, it would have required a scaffold being put up, lots of time, cost associated with that. Can we do this now using 3D data to quickly and more cost effectively and time effectively give us that information? You can even measure the depth of the mortar that's in there. Protect is a really important area for us. We're based within the Conservation Directorate here, so a lot of our work is focused on how we conserve the historic environment. So Joanne referenced the RAY project earlier, and that's the multi-year initiative to record all of the 336 sites that we look after across our estate. And that's my team's responsibility, so we've got a job for pretty much the rest of our careers, I think. This is links of Noteland that was up here. We use lots of different techniques. It's not just laser scanning, we use photogrammetry. We use whatever is available to us at the time, whatever is most appropriate for the particular site that we're looking at. And we like to make sure we get everywhere, so even in the bread ovens at Stirling Castle. This is Nessaburgie up on Shetland. This is an image that Martha produced from the laser scan registration there. We were up in Shetland in the summer with Mike, who's up here as well. So one of our more remote sites, but one that features quite highly on our climate change risk assessment. So it's important for us to have this information that we can then use as the basis for monitoring going forward. Edinburgh Castle is one that we've been working on for several years now. As you can imagine, a very big and complex site, so it's taken us quite a while to get there with it. But we have now been working across the whole of the castle area to get a complete 3D documentation. And now that we have that, we're able to focus in on particular areas of the castle to give us some more information that is bringing out some quite surprising results. So earlier this year, we put Mark, our works manager, down well at Edinburgh Castle, working with our colleagues in interpretation who are here today, to find out a little bit more about the well structure. So we strapped a GoPro onto Mark as well before he went down the well. And this is a point cloud of him at the bottom in the middle there as well. So we gave him a laser scanner to take down, our Faro laser scanner, which we set up for him, and effectively is one button press when you get to the bottom. So he did a great job in getting that done for us. So what we were able to do with that is to position the well within the context of the rest of the castle, and we've popped this onto Sketchfab to make it as accessible as possible. The nice thing that we've been able to do with this project as well, and we've seen this in a couple of the presentations earlier today, is to look at how we can use the new laser scan data in comparison with the traditional drawing and the old drawings that we have. So this one is by Aldreve from 1912, the original survey of the well, with very accurate dimensions. So our challenge was to see how that stood up to the test of time. So by overlaying the laser scan data onto that, we can see that it actually was pretty accurate. And we believe that the first drawing was captured by effectively a man rowed out in a bucket with a lot less safety equipment than we gave Mark this time around. So the laser scan there, what we were able to do was from that information, to calculate the volume of the well, and to compare that with historic records which talk about the well being filled up by snow during a siege in the summer, a freak snowstorm which led the soldiers who were under siege at the time to survive for a few months longer. So we could calculate the volume of water that would have been held in that well and figure out if that was an accurate account or not, which we think it was. And you can just see at the bottom on the right hand side there, that's Mark at the bottom of the well to give you some scale on that. Joanne touched earlier on the fact that we're monitoring the coastal erosion up in Scarabray and Orkney, one of our most important sites, World Heritage sites up there. So every 2 years we now go up and we record the coastline at Scarabray. This is our most recent scanning epoch from 2018 in comparison to the 2 years before. And what we're finding is that while we have built a defensive concrete seawall in front of the village itself, we're actually seeing quite a dynamic system at either side of the seawall, where we're seeing erosion and then accretion in different areas. And this is a very dynamic system, so we're keeping an eye on this, comparing it every 2 years, but also with our baseline information from 2010, which we captured as part of the Scottish 10 project. So here you have a quantitative scale on the side where red is up to about ½ metre in terms of erosion, accretion, and then the purple is areas of erosion. So we can see quite a bit of movement, so that's something that our conservation architects are very closely monitoring to make any decisions on the management of that site. We also feed that information into the Scottish Government's Dynamic Coast project, and we have 3D models now available on that website that people can access and use as part of the larger assessment of Scotland's coastal change assessment. Ewan showed earlier a little bit of the hill house work that we're doing at the moment, and as Joanne mentioned, my background is in science, and our team here started out as part of the conservation science team, so it's very important for us to base the work that we do in digital on scientific principles. So integrating digital and science is very much at the heart of what we do, and this is a really nice project that we're working on together with National Trust for Scotland. It's not just about integration of science and digital, we're also integrating digital with traditional skills now. And this is a partnership project with the Office of Public Works in Ireland. The Four Courts building, some of you might be familiar with in Dublin, is undergoing a big scheme of restoration at the moment. And as part of that, we're doing a skills exchange where our stonemasons are going to be recarving one of the stone capitals to go into the refurbished building. So in, I think it was September last year, Al went over to Dublin to scan this capital, which is their exemplar one for the newly restored building, to create this 3D model that you can see on the right. And that's then been 3D printed at 1:1 scale on our low-cost, recyclable material 3D printer. You can actually see this down at the bottom end of the exhibition hall if you're interested. So Al Lara there, who is our stonemason, who has got the job of recarving this capital, and she is now using this 3D print as the basis for her carving. We've also given her a VR model of the 3D model too, so she can pop on a Vive headset if she likes, and use that for scale and for reference too. So we've been working quite closely with our traditional skills team to make sure that we're delivering something that actually meets their needs and is going to be useful. So it's been a really interesting process, and one that we're really happy to be able to work on some more. So value, finally, Amadou, not good. Collections. The other really important part of the RAY project is that we're also documenting most of the 36,000 collections objects that we have in our asset list here. And lots of different objectives, again, similar to our sites as to how we're going to use those, but salvage planning for when potentially a disaster may occur, looking at how we have these 3D assets and 3D information, how we can use those to prioritise. 3D printed handling kits and increasing accessibility. So these are some quick examples from Elgin Cathedral. There was a redisplay programme in the last couple of years, so we had the opportunity to scan some of the stone carvings there and recreate 30% scale 3D printed handling kits for our education officers up there to be able to use when they're talking to school children about these objects. And Sketchfab is a fantastic tool for us to be able to make these collections more accessible, and something that we're using more and more now. So we've been rolling out a series of 100 objects. I think we're probably about halfway through now, and many thanks to Spectrum Heritage and to AOC Archaeology, who did a lot of the documentation in these for us. Another one that we're looking at in this year is the Great Polish Map of Scotland. Quite an interesting one. Don't know if a lot of you will be familiar with it. A large-scale concrete map of Scotland down in the Scottish borders, which we were asked by Scottish ministers to document to digitally celebrate Scottish and Polish cultural connections. So we laser scanned it, created a 3D model, and then Marta spent some time investigating and extrapolating the most important cultural connections between Scotland and Poland and presenting these on Sketchfab. So this ties in with the Polish centenary celebrations that are taking place this year. One last one, and this is a nod to Jenny Mackay's talk, who's up at the back there. Go Forth Digital Learning Resources. We have been laser scanning the Forth Bridge, our 6th World Heritage Site in Scotland for several years. And Jenny is our digital learning consultant who's going to be talking on Friday at DigiDoc for those staying on. We've been working with her to develop 3D learning resources, making these 3D scans meaningful for every school child across Scotland to access. So there's been a combination of digital resources developed from games-based learning to 3D modelling, Tinkercad resources, and all of these are now freely accessible through the through Education Scotland's GLOW network. So we launched these last week, and Jenny will be talking about these in much more detail on Friday. Skim through this very quickly. Answering Wall, we're working, tying in with Maria's work on emotive, but also developing an Answering Wall app, which features augmented reality, location-based AR, using our 3D models to be able to digitally repatriate artifacts to their find locations. And we're working with partners across Europe on this, one that we're very excited about. And then thinking about how we can bring experiences to people in new and innovative ways. So earlier this year, the digital innovation team were out at Linlithgow for the jousting. So we're looking at how we can use stereoscopic 360 video, 4K video, and 3D sound as well, to be able to develop more immersive experiences to let people understand and enjoy not just our historic environment, but the events that take place at our historic sites in a bit more detail. So just to sum up, for us, digital heritage is about how we can make 3D data useful and meaningful for the understanding, protection, and enjoyment of our historic environment. We feel that research and innovation is really driving delivery, and that's why we feel that today has been so important. There are challenges that remain, certainly, upskilling, funding, resourcing. We're here at the Engine Shed to share our experiences, to collaborate and to learn from all of you. And our role here is to promote best practice and help support mainstreaming across the sector and communities. I mentioned that we have some interns too, Sophia and Marta, and supporting the next generation of digital heritage experts is a really important thing for us. Thank you all.